When I was younger, we would visit our family friends every once in a while as a sort of mini vacation. They were a few hours away, so we'd take the weekend, load up the van and head a few towns over to stay with them. The Lawsons are friends of my parents from high school. They all grew up together, so the idea of visiting them was quite common. Back then, every year they'd either come down for New Year's Eve or we would drive up to see them for some other reason. I'm pretty sure this time was just an excuse to have an October getaway. I remember when we first visited that house, the whole neighbourhood seemed to have this eerie sense about it, like it was a set for a horror movie, though I'm sure it was magnified in my mind since I was fairly young. They were part of a new subdevelopment, so a good number of houses were vacant. Driving slowly past all the empty, dark windows felt like passing through a ghost town, but that wasn't really the unnerving part about the neighbourhood. Their street was the northmost street in the subdivision, meaning the house faced a large vacant lot across the road. Beyond that lot there was nothing, for hundreds and hundreds of kilometres. So the lot just stood there like some sort of border between the North Forest and their street. Pulling up to their house for the first time was like being on the border of some country's war zone. A strip of brand new houses on the left and no man's zone on the right. I don't know why, but it wasn't the forest that bothered me or the oddly vacant houses so much as that lot. That massive, empty, desolate lot that had nothing in it. Well, nothing besides that tree. The Lawsons had children about the age of my siblings and I, so we had a lot of the same interests. I mean, we were kids, so how diverse were we going to be? Movies, TV, pool, video games, all acted as ways to pass the time, and for a young kid who didn't own a video game, it was heaven. All the kids bunked together in sleepover fashion while my parents took the pull-up mattress on the main floor, and we would stay up late watching movies and eating junk food. My sleeping bag was right next to the north-facing window in their son's room, and remembered just before getting into bed, looking out at the vacant lot of that tree, standing twisted and mangled in the moonlight with a sense of uneasiness. Odd that I remember it, but I really do. After 2 whole days inside, our parents finally kicked us out to go and get some fresh air. Since literally every other direction was housing, the only real player area was across the street in the vacant lot, and with nothing else in the lot, we were brought to the tree. The tree itself was old, older than any tree I'd seen before or since. Its roots stretched out far and wide along the ground in a twisted fashion, like immovable veins embedded in the earth. Its bark was jagged and toothy, the kind where if you leaned up against it, it would snag your sweater and fray a little bit of your coat. Touching it felt wrong, as if a warning to stay away, the same way a poisonous animal's colour tells you to stay away, but of all else its colour seemed the most out of place, darker than any wood I had ever seen and cracked as if it had been split apart and reattached 100 times over. As our friends excitedly led us around the tree, my brother followed, and I looked up at the massive branches, which stretched out like broken limbs, jagged and sharp as if reaching for the sky. Nothing had ever made me feel more uncomfortable, however. The most unnerving thing was the large knot they led us to at the back of the tree. Right in the centre at the back of the tree around eye level, which for a young kid was about 4 to 5 feet up I guess, was a massive deformed knot. The piece stuck out at least 30 centimetres and looked to be about the size of a basketball, but it wasn't smooth. In fact, it was rather uneven and bumpy like a tumour. The other kids smiled as my brother and I approached it, and as if revealing a secret, they pointed to the top right to reveal a small hole. The hole seemed like either a woodpecker or a kid with a pocket knife must have carved it out forever ago. As a rite of passage, they told my brother and I that we'd have to stick our fingers and touch the inside of the tree. My brother didn't hesitate too much, but I was shaking in my boots. I can't recall why, but no part of me wanted to touch it. As I watched him stick his finger in, I felt sick until he quickly pulled it out again safely and without concern. The others laughed as I slowly stuck my pointer finger into the small hole, reaching as far back as I could. Inside it was an open, empty pocket, and I could touch the back wall, which felt smooth like a stone. They scaled the tree, but my brother and I just stood for a bit, pretending that we weren't interested in climbing the tree. It must have been pretty obvious how unnerved we were, because it wasn't long before the taunting started. My brother was the first to crack, giving in and starting up the massive trunk of the tree, but everything inside me said, "Don't do it." However, when you're young and impressionable, there's nothing worse than being labelled a coward, so after a few fake laughs, I headed up as well. I remember the branches were sharp, and the bark was cracked and jagged like tiny teeth, and rather than head up to the top with the others, I picked the thickest, heaviest branch to sit on. The three of them were near the top and a good distance away as I wrapped my legs around the heavy branch. I looked down thinking it was pretty high up, and for a moment I thought it wasn't too bad. The branch I was on felt smoother, and I ran my fingers along the soft wood beneath my fingertips. That's when I looked at what I was touching. At first, I didn't quite get it, to be honest. It was a smooth groove deep within the trunk, as if someone had started cutting all the way around the branch but stopped. It wasn't all that deep, but it was wide and went all the way round to the top. I'm embarrassed to say that for a long time I was puzzled until my brother started climbing back down. He could tell I was nervous about the tree, so sat next to me on the branch as I continued looking at the smoothed out wood between the groove. As he touched as well, a sudden realization came over him and his eyes went wide. This is from a rope. My dad said they had probably had a rope swing out here at some point, and I think that answer satisfied my brother when he told him about it, as well as the other kids. I admit for a minute I felt better too, until the kids started calling it the hanging tree. Of course they said it while flashing big cocky grins towards me, part trying to scare me, part mocking me, but either way, it worked. That night I got up to use the bathroom, and when I got back to my sleeping bed, I glanced out the window at the hanging tree. No, I didn't see any ghostly figures or haunted spirits beckoning me, but this isn't that kind of story. What I did see was the tree sitting there in the field, the branch I'd just sat on, and through the wind howled the tree. It didn't move. Not a single sway. I couldn't stop looking at the tree in the field, and many times that night I woke up just to look at it. We left the next day. Life went back to normal. My brother and I forgot about the hanging tree and the general creepiness of their land, and it wasn't until a few years later that we actually thought of going to the hanging tree again. Apparently, a young boy, maybe our age, when we first touched the tree, ended up hanging himself from that tree. They found him early morning. Apparently the parents hadn't seen him that night. Turns out, he tied the noose and jumped off the branch I'd sat on only a few years earlier. They moved shortly after. This story popped into my head a few weeks ago, and because it had always been an upsetting experience for me, I ended up doing some research on the area. Apparently, the area was rampant a few hundred years ago with hanging trees, especially in the fields off into the woods where this one was. I don't know why my dad lied to us. Maybe he thought it was best we didn't know, or maybe he honestly didn't know, but whatever the reason, I'm glad he lied. However, that's not the reason why I'm writing this. As I researched the area, it turns out they chopped down that tree a few years later as they were expanding houses, and as I clicked on all the subsequent articles, the blood drained from my face. There is an old way of torturing the truly terrible humans, monsters who rape and murder indiscriminately. They used to tie them to a large tree and simply left them to die in the woods. As I scrolled through the subsequent articles, I noticed that the massive knot on the trunk of the tree laid on in field with the police and forensic officers all around it. That knot wasn't a hollow piece of wood. Centuries ago, someone was tied to that tree, and as the tree grew, it enveloped his body slowly, taking place of his bones and moving through the trunk of the tree, through its limbs and roots. I haven't slept. I'm having a tough time forgetting the soft stone-like feel of the back of the dead man's skull as I reached through his eye socket and touched it within the hanging tree. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Also, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for all the kind of mistakes in this one. I'm really distracted today. I'm not having the best of days, but yeah. Thank you for all the nice comments. Honestly, it makes my day when I get up in the morning and go to YouTube and read all your nice comments. So yeah, originally this channel was just it was a competition with my friend to see who could get the most subscribers in a week, and 15 I won, so thank you all for that. But I'm going to definitely continue with this channel because it's something I love to do, and horror is a passion of mine, much to the confusion of my mum and dad, but hey, oh well. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!